Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for spending time during your afternoon with me. Jeff, I also want to thank you for this really unique presentation opportunity. It's great practice as a presenter, and I hope that I can offer all of you a little bit of insight into online learning. It's really a pleasure to meet some of you. You'll see the photo of me on the slide. You can be assured that I don't look stylish and dressed up for a formal occasion. Instead, I'm here sporting some snazzy headphones, thanks to Ed Cabellin and scenic presentation location of my office. But here's my information, and I'm hoping we can start off by just meeting each other and hopefully making a connection on a topic that has become near and dear to my heart over the past few years. If you're here to learn about flawless practices in online learning, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to offer you that. But what I am going to do is to share a little bit of our experience here at Bridgewater State University. I've set a couple of presentation goals for our time together, and they focus on two main areas. One is in the area of distance education strategies. I'm hoping to challenge you to think about your work in a distance education forum. From time to time, we've talked a lot about social media and ways of marketing and access to students for promotion of opportunities, but this was among my first experiences with looking at true distance education strategies and thinking about my work in campus activities in that context. And the second piece has to do with practical implementation. I'm going to talk a bit about initiatives from my office over the past few years, as well as some information I collected from panelists at a session that we presented at the NACA National Convention in 2009. At that session, I worked with some colleagues to present some experiences that we've had across our campuses and found a lot of really common experiences. I want to talk a little bit about Bridgewater State University. For some of you that I'm connected with on Twitter, you know we just became a university recently, but we are a public four-year institution in southeastern Massachusetts. For those of you who know about University of Massachusetts, we have a UMass system here in Massachusetts, but then a separate state university system. Our enrollment is approximately 11,000 students, and that includes undergraduate and graduate degree programs. As you know, we've just become a university. We're pretty excited. And the campus is really in an environment of change and real forward thinking that comes with a whole new identity as a university. We're also a 64% commuter student campus. And I think that's a really important statistic to know when considering distance education initiatives. Want you to get to know my department as well. We're called OSL, which is the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership. And of course, just like everybody, I'm sure, you have a hashtag for shenanigans around the office. We're called OSL all day. It's a good place to work. We've got a broad array of responsibilities. The staff is 4 full-time administrators, 2 grad assistants, and the equivalent of 3 support and technical staff. We also rely very heavily on paraprofessional staff to do a number of functions that, you know, in my dream world, I think we're going to fuse all of these students together to create new staff positions, but we all know that that reality is probably not very likely in today's economy. Instead, we try to split some areas down into some very narrow areas of responsibility and give some advanced student leaders the chance to get some practical experience and really make an impact on co-curricular life on our campus. Our paraprofessional staff supports a couple of areas most heavily, one being club and organization event planning. They also support our marketing initiative. We have 2 student orientation coordinators. We have a student weekend activities team. So we do rely on a lot of those students a great deal. Finally, just an overview of what we do. You can see the list of program responsibilities. We're not very different from many campus activities offices in that we're combining a lot of different areas under one department umbrella. We're recently experiencing a program review process this semester, and the interesting part about all these responsibilities came to light as I realized I had to do 4 program reviews to truly show our campus what our department was all about. So just reviewing campus activities didn't really tell the whole story. So this is our list, and you'll notice, you know, leadership development programming is part of it, but it's not the only part of it. So we had to fuse responsibilities for all of these areas like many of you. Next, let's think about why exploring distance education strategies was a good idea. The first question of why we explored it had to do with a kind of a turning point in our department's development. We were really struggling to make ends meet, as many of you are as well on your campuses. We really had to take a hard look at what we were doing, how we were doing it, And in light of challenges with staffing, it was really just a challenge to me as the department director to look at how do we do what we do differently, maybe with different results and maybe with better results in some cases. So distance education played a big role in trying to rethink our focus and our directions in some of these areas. The second piece of asking yourself, why should you think about it? Some of you are familiar with these 7 principles of good practice in undergraduate education, and Principle 7 on that list talks about respecting diverse talents and ways of learning. It asks faculty to create learning opportunities that appeal to the different ways students process and attend to information. I include student affairs professionals on that list, even though it specifies faculty, and that offering a good undergraduate education had to do with thinking about different learning styles and how students learn. A second piece of why you should think about it has to do with expanding our reach. In student affairs, we're always talking about how to reach out to different student populations, how to reach out to broader student populations. Distance education may offer that to you on your campus. Next, distance education students may be your next critical mass. You never know. I've been doing some research through some of my doctoral coursework on managing distance education programs, and there's a real absence of conversation in student affairs about distance ed and what our place might be in it, how we might function in it, what services these students need, do they need our services. The dialogue is really out there for the taking, and on your campus it may become a reality, maybe for some of you sooner than others, but thinking about distance education students and what they may be bringing to your department is a great reason to consider distance education. And finally, resources may already be there for you on campus to give some of these things a try, and I'll talk a little bit about what we did to explore some of the availability. All right, the adoption of distance learning. You want to give some thought to where your institution might be on a spectrum. I looked for a good model, and I'm sure there might be one out there, but I wanted to explain to you kind of the spectrum that I've seen from my colleagues when it comes to distance education. I should also let you know that I'm a doctoral student through an online program. So I've seen a couple examples of distance education and get a daily opportunity to compare my doctoral program at University of Nebraska to what we have at Bridgewater State. I put us on the continuum, and you'll notice that I kind of going up the ladder, start with nobody talking about it, then coming to a few isolated courses being offered in a distance forum, moving to most students taking at least one online course, then to a full degree, and finally where your campus is leading innovations in this area. I'll put us somewhere between a few isolated courses and most students taking at least one online course at some point. So distance ed is not a headline area here at Bridgewater, but it is an emerging area. Our president is really committed to the idea that online courses really do hold some opportunities for us in the future, and he's really been fostering a campus dialogue about online learning. But again, student affairs is not necessarily a part of it. We instead took that initiative to become a part of the dialogue. This is from a online resource here at my campus asking why teach online, and it says the primary goal of our online initiative is to make a quality education available to all students in Southeastern Mass. Now, in student affairs, we believe that our pieces of the educational process are a part of a quality education. Therefore, why teach online, although the document was developed for faculty, to me really resonated with the fact that we have something to offer in this teaching and learning process. In addition, some key points are covered on this website. They talk about why teaching online, that we want to prepare students for online communication in the workplace. We want to provide relevant learning experiences for students growing up in a digital environment. We want to support learning styles, as I mentioned before, substantially reducing student scheduling conflicts, and thereby increasing a four-year graduation rate. This is big for us. We have a space crunch that just rears its ugly head every time in every way, from scheduling campus events to scheduling courses, and online instruction is really being seen as a scheduling solution for us as well. And finally, reaching out to non-traditional students for whom work and family and other responsibilities might otherwise prohibit completion of a degree program. This one is also big and showed up in some of our program results. So, a campus perspective, we have some resources in place to support faculty exploration of online learning here. And we have a campus goal of extending our reach and our focus on engaged student learning. These goals meshed up nicely with what we did here in the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership. We looked at the resources in place to support faculty exploration, and the first phone call was made to our Teaching and Technology Center, and I pretty much asked them, what do you have that could help us start our journey into distance education? And his answer was, we support the average adjunct faculty with these resources, and he made those available to us. So what we did was really just take what was already available and applying it in a new forum. For us in the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership, our technology support, we have a group of administrators in our area that are tech-friendly, but aren't the people responsible for technology on campus. So we definitely have a degree of need for tech support and a degree of assistance from the rest of campus, but not dedicated support. In addition, we had a staffing transition asking all of us to take on additional programming roles that was fueling some of this conversation. We also did have institutional support for reevaluating our departmental work approach. These conversations were taking place with our division leadership. They were with us on the need to kind of reframe and refocus. So the support was there, and as far as I'm concerned, the groundwork was laid for some really interesting steps. I'm going to talk to you about 4 online initiatives that we investigated over the past, I would say, 4 years in earnest, and they focus on those 4 areas that are shown on the screen. We have some successes, we have some failures, and I'll tell you about it all. So first, nuts and bolts training for student programmers. You could also call this death by paperwork. A lot of campus activities offices have this in place where we have to find a way to teach students about really fascinating topics like how to complete a bus registration form and how to tell us that they want a cash bag for their upcoming events. So we looked at this program as a real need for us to try to make things more interesting, more innovative. What we had in place was a required nuts and bolts training for officers of student groups. So it was one of those, you have to send 2 people to this seminar kind of situations. Those topics, as I mentioned, just so fascinating. Raffle paperwork, how to reserve a room, even a group of talented presenters like ourselves struggled just a bit with how to make all of this interesting. In addition, it took 2 weeks of staff presentations because you know how difficult it is to get students into individual meetings. We had to offer them over the span of 2 weeks. We also had frequent repeat participants. If a student had gone the prior year, you can imagine they weren't real excited about coming back for a second crack at it. So we had to deal with some of those folks that had a lot of experience, and we really didn't blame them for some frustration. And finally, the urgency factor just wasn't there. We found ourselves repeating ourselves a lot through the course of the year. You know, the group didn't really know they wanted to do a raffle in the middle of September, but when January rolled around, they knew they had to. So they, again, needed somebody to explain the raffle procedure. So our plate was kind of set up this way, and we really weren't happy with what we were offering. What we did was investigated Blackboard as a solution to this. Obviously, it doesn't have to be Blackboard, but if there's a learning system that you use on your campus, you could pursue that. We created some voiceover presentations involving our student leaders as our MCs and broke them up into 4 different presentations. We had required tests on each module where if you've completed the Nuts and Bolts 101, you had to take a test. You had to get 100% in order to move on to module number 2. And we still have the urgency factor in place, but we find that it's just a skosh easier for them to swallow. If they're thinking about a raffle, for example, and they're not necessarily the person doing the raffles, they can get the person who's actually responsible for that area to participate more easily than they used to in the live seminar delivery model. The benefits for this change were the reduction in the staff time needed. We really cut down the need for all of us to be presenting sessions nonstop over the course of 2 weeks. Instead, we have 1 staff member who engages the help of the rest over the summer to prepare the material. We also have now given students year-round accessibility to information. So if I get an email from a student that says they want to plan a raffle, I can email them the training piece and remind them of what they completed in the past. They can watch the presentation before we meet, and they're a little more prepared. Also, I found that returning student leaders could manage the quizzes a lot more easily. They were not real excited about sitting through a 1-hour presentation, but I found them a little more amenable to the idea of going through a quiz and getting a refresher. In addition, this gave us the potential to reach a lot more students. We used to ask for 2 representatives from each organization. We upped that to 4 because we felt like it was a little easier to manage, and we found that we're able to bring a lot more students into the conversation. Okay. There we go. The challenges. One big challenge to making the shift for us was that we reduced our staff interactions with these students. We have a group of clubs and organizations that we don't really see very often, and so the smaller groups that aren't directly advised by a member of our staff, we found that that was sometimes one of our only interactions with leaders from these organizations. So that was a real negative. In addition, there's a possibility of clicking through and not really retaining the information. That definitely does exist, but really we had that with the live seminar model anyway. The phrase, some of them are just mailing it in. They were sitting there, but I, again, didn't really know if they were retaining the information, but we do still have that challenge. All right, next, our second area that we investigated was the use of blogs for student travel. This was started because we had some budget constraints that were preventing as many staff and students from traveling. We wanted to figure out ways that we could bring more of the experience home if many of them were not able to attend the program. We used to have the old present for the group when you get home model with some of the student groups, and let's just say that really wasn't as effective either. It ended up with a bunch of inside jokes from the group that traveled to the conference. They had a great time. It was more of a haha, I got to go and you didn't kind of experience. So we knew that wasn't working. We wanted to look at something else. And finally, we had a need to educate more administrators about the value of student participation in our off-campus travel. Just in the time of budget constraints, this was an area that people were starting to question. Why do we need to send 8 members of the programming board to the NACA conference? Everything was just being reviewed with a little more scrutiny, and we wanted to find a way to help illustrate the experience that they were getting. What we did, we had each group create its own blog site for conference travel, and I'm giving you 2 links here so in case you want to read them. Our delegates to NACA have been keeping theirs for a couple years now, and the group uses the same site when they go back the next year. And also our fraternity and sorority delegates to the Greek Leadership Conference are listed out here too. They're both some really interesting reading, and I really couldn't say enough about these blogs. They're really interesting. I've passed them on to conference organizers as well. They've had some good reading. A couple of things that blogging has given us as part of this process. Some benefits. I love the immediate reflection and the information from year to year for the delegates. When somebody's selected to attend, they can go back and read about the prior group's experience, and I think that's really valuable. We also get the chance to engage the rest of campus. I do a lot of shameless promotion before they go about please visit the site, please comment, please make this an active kind of experience. And this way, even our Vice President for Student Affairs can engage with them while they're there. Some challenges. It's really hard to find time in some conference schedules to do this. Late night blogging at the NACA conference and the Starbucks at 2 a.m. Really probably isn't the best wellness endeavor we can offer, but what we found was that our students, they loved it, and that was the time they preferred to get together and blog. Challenges, technology access. I hope the conference sponsors are reading this, but the technology access for everybody and not having each student have to pay was a real struggle, but what we did was ended up, luckily at all the conference locations we've gone to so far, there's been at least one place with free Wi-Fi that they can use. And finally, the writing is sometimes out of context to the non-participant. So trying to teach them about what to put on the blogs has been kind of a struggle. They can't write, hey, wasn't that a great session, without telling the reader what they were doing. So those have been some of the challenges. All right, third area, pre-service training for orientation leaders. This section is going to be a little shorter. We recorded some podcasts for our OL training, and the development of the idea came from the challenge of having returning OLs and new OLs in the same staff. Returning OLs were bored to tears about learning the basics of academic advising for a second year. Granted, everybody needs refreshers, everybody needs new information, everybody needs an update, but again, the very basics of the core curriculum, once they had used it for one summer, was a real struggle. So we thought it would be great to record some pre-service podcasts that everybody could listen to, and something that would bring the new people up to speed, where the OLs that were returning and the OLs that were new could all start training and really just focus on things that are new and different, or areas that we needed to emphasize in a given year. We wanted to prevent repeats. We also wanted to make use of the time between the hire and start of training. But you'll see in the list of challenges that this is just a really bad time of year to think about some extra work for these students. It's April 1st through commencement. It was horrible. And the accountability piece just wasn't there either. What we did was we had a staff meeting in late March, where we explained their task and that they had to complete these podcasts prior to the start of OL training. But the accountability just wasn't there. They had only really met us even once for some of them. And it wasn't an ongoing staff meeting yet, and it was really just a brief introduction to the job. And so a lot of them really just put it off. A lot of them just really didn't complete it or get a lot out of it. And if we had had a structure of a little more active reflection and conversation in place, I think it might have worked. But in short, just don't do it. If you don't have an ongoing structure in place to more active review of these podcasts, and if you're like us and try to put it in April through May, I just really think it was a rough experiment. But we learned. What has come from this now, though, is that our orientation staff that are returning are a lot more involved in the training from our academic advising folks, and they really do understand now the need for returning staff to have a different role. Finally, our Student Leadership Institute is the fourth area, and this part even really emerged from a need to do things that were different with our time and with our work. We used to have a program that was a face-to-face, kind of a very typical 6-week seminar series type of format. It's a non-credit format. We were experiencing declining enrollment, and this was kind of that epiphany of, I know numbers are not the bottom line of what we do, but it was a lot of work for a very small number of students. The original format was just not doing it for us, and the student level of commitment was variable. We found that because it was a non-credit course, when things got difficult toward the end of the semester, students were just dropping out and just couldn't really make it a priority. What we did, we developed our current program as a Blackboard virtual course. Again, depending on what learning management system you have on your campus, choose your system based on what your campus supports. Our current program our current program benefited from faculty workshops about podcasting in the classroom. Again, this is taking advantage of resources that exist on campus. I went to a workshop about podcasting, and it really wasn't that hard to really figure out the technical aspects of a basic podcast. So taking advantage of what exists on campus. We also utilized an external consultant. We worked with Michael Miller from Fun Enterprises to record our podcasts, and we hired the external consultant mainly because, again, this was 3 years ago, and a venture into online learning for us was very new. So he partnered with me in developing the curriculum, and he had the task of helping me to take what he would normally present as a 1-hour workshop on goal setting, and really taking that down to about a 10-minute workshop on goal setting in an online type of setting. So it was a challenge, but the external consultant was a real benefit in that we were looking for somebody to augment our staff effort during a time of a staff shortage. And finally, one thing we did was added an element of choice for students to select their depth of commitment. In the prior program, we had a face-to-face series that was, again, 6 weeks long. There's also a mentoring program, and I don't know if anybody else has ever been a part of a forced mentoring arrangement, but some of the students loved it, some students didn't. But what we lacked was an element of choice. So under this new structure, we've got a way for students to choose how much they want to pursue part of the program. So our components of the current program, we have 3 different tracks of participation. Students can select their track. So they select track 1. They have an online interaction only. They have a group project, and they attend a presentation that's presented by someone in track 3. So online is just basic for track number 1. Track 2 has all of the track 1 components plus a mentor program added to the mix. And then track 3 has everything from 1 and 2, but adds a presentation. Students in track 3 are asked to select a leadership topic that they develop a workshop for with their mentors, and they present it for the track 1 participants to attend, as well as anybody else on campus. We're working through the presentations now. This is the first year we've used that aspect, and it's really been interesting to watch students, the track 3 students, not only dig deeper into a topic, but also to share their learning with their peers. The other components of the program, it works together. There are podcasts, there are Blackboard discussions, and there's a guidebook. We created the guidebook. It's just a real paper spiral-bound kind of deal for the folks that really like to write while they were listening to the podcast. So the guidebook really is a shell for a student to take notes. So if the topic is, there are 5 important aspects of goal setting, there are blanks where it's the number 1 and write it in, number 2 and write it in, and so forth. So there's something they can actively be doing while they're listening. There's also a group project component with which we struggle with a great deal. But I'll tell you that we wanted to have some element of face-to-face interaction. So there's a group project embedded in one of the podcasts. And now, the third year into the program, we're still struggling with really what that group project should look like and how that should be done. But the group project is something that I really do feel strongly about to give them the chance to meet face-to-face. Here's a list of topics that are covered in our program. There are 10 podcasts, and you can see them listed on here. Our participants happily reported growth in skills for all 10 areas, and when we ran the statistics on their self-ratings from pre-test to post-test, we're happy to say that all 10 topics gave us some significant difference in how they felt about their own growth as part of the Leadership Institute. What's really interesting is that over the course of 3 years, the topics of time management and the topic of goal setting and the topic of motivation were 3 that we repeatedly see as the highest gains. Saying why that happened, it's either that we do a really great job with those 3 topics, or we have students that are signing up for this program that have deeper need in those 3 areas. But that's something to pursue for another rainy day. In general, I think our program is awesome, but not yet perfect. We really do struggle with the high-tech and high-touch balance. To offer it as a, the ideal as a hybrid course to try to give students the chance to meet each other in person. Given that it's a self-paced program, that's really difficult because they're getting to the point of assignment for the group project at different rates. So we're still tweaking the right way to do that. One thing we assumed was familiarity with Blackboard that really just wasn't there. I was really assuming that all professors on campus were actively using Blackboard and that all students would just come into this program with automatic knowledge. That really just wasn't the case. So we have to embed a little bit of training, and I also like to talk about that to my faculty colleagues because I really see this as a way that we can support the academic effort. Another challenge for us is the engagement of our Track 1 participants. I actually have a student teaching assistant that works with me as part of the program, and her main role is to kind of follow around our Track 1 participants. These are the folks that are only interacting online. And we find that the Track 2, those are the folks that had the mentor. The mentor really does play a big role in helping us know how engaged the student truly is. But without the mentor component, we have to be a lot more active in tracking our Track 1 participants, no pun intended. All right, some results and reflections. For all 4 of these programs, we saw a change in participation from students. We saw a change in the Leadership Institute, specifically in the group of students that we were seeing as part of our program. Again, we're a department that doesn't have dedicated staff in the area of leadership development, and we were looking for a better way to reach more students with the one small window of time that we have. And what we found was that we had a different group of students signing up. We saw more students that would describe themselves as introverted. We saw more students that were older than your traditional age group of students. We had graduate students enrolling for the first time. We had international students enrolling. And when I talked to them about why, a lot of them say that there's a stigma associated with leadership programs, that you're going to be in a room full of super outgoing, intense leader types, whatever that means. And this program offered them the chance to interact in a different kind of way. Our other programs saw a change in participation in a way that the blogs offered our conference goers, offered each of them an equal voice, where in the past it would be if the president of the group went, the positional leadership structure would kind of prevent the freshman member from really saying her piece sometimes. So it got her to participate a little bit more. Next, all programs really struggle with accountability, and in the absence of credit-based initiatives, we struggle with this. Our Nuts and Bolts program, you can track much more easily the participation of which 4 members from a group went, but can I make sure that the right 4 members from a group went? Do I know that it's the vice president for programming from the Social Justice League who I think really needs this information? I still don't have a way to track that. But again, we're struggling with the accountability, but we're making it work. Next, all programs struggle with time management. One of the things that I've experienced as a doctoral student in a distance setting is just the self-discipline that you need to remind yourself to go on and check the board, and remind yourself to go in and read the article, and remind yourself to go on and see the presentation. There's an amount of self-discipline that's needed that, in, again, these non-credit-based settings are somewhat of a struggle for us. In addition, the Leadership Institute, I find myself doing a lot of reminders, and you should be at module number 3 by now, types of prompting to students. Next, the blogging as well as the Leadership Institute gave us a chance to contribute to writing skill development. We didn't have a lot of these examples to talk about how we contribute to the development of student writing skills other than the written applications that are needed for some of our leadership roles. But this gave us a chance to really have something to say about how we're contributing to writing development. I'll tell you that the Leadership Institute Blackboard discussions have been so much more detailed and so much more robust than they used to be in the face-to-face setting, because students really get the chance to think about what they're writing, and they've really put out some things out there that have really blown my mind. In addition to the blogging, getting students used to the idea of writing where everybody in the world could conceivably see it is a really great experience. Also, all of our programs give us the chance to reach out more students and different students. Our scope is changing here, and it used to be very solely focused on positional leaders in undergraduate settings, and that's not really the case anymore. We're not doing enough of it. It's a progress type of trajectory that I really need us to do more with, but for now it's really helped us to kind of start seeing the benefits of opening our department to a broader scope of students. Finally, the concept of no longer being on the sidelines. I want to encourage you to focus on a few things. One, as to taking some time to explore and innovate right now before it becomes a critical mass on your campus. This is the time to experiment with taking some things online. Our Leadership Institute experiment helped solve a lot of the issues we were having at the time, but again, it's not the be-all end-all of leadership education for us, but it is one thing we can uniquely contribute to here on campus, and I'm really glad that we spent the time playing with it and tweaking it when we did, because now that our mass of distance students is starting to increase, we're going to have some better products to show them, and we're going to have some better professional skills as well. Next, your campus may have resources that are already there that you can apply in your area. I talk about our Leadership Institute program when I go to professional conferences, and people say, oh, wow, you must have really great dedicated tech support for this program. And that's not really the case. All it really took was a couple of good conversations about podcasting and am I allowed to attend these workshops with the faculty and those types of things in the beginning. And from here, it's really just some basic tech support of, you know, this podcast, I can't really figure out why someone using Safari on a Mac can't listen to it. That type of tech support is there. But again, it's not dedicated staffing, and it really wasn't that hard for me to learn. Next, thinking about student affairs professionals have a lot to contribute in the area of distance education. One of the things in my coursework I've noticed is that we're not really talking about community building in a distance ed setting, and that's something we know really well and can really contribute, especially through those of us who are working hard to master social media, those of us who can look at teaching and learning in a distance ed setting. We've got a lot to offer the discussion about how to make a meaningful experience for these groups of students who may be interacting with our colleges and universities in a purely online setting. We can do this, and we have a lot to bring to the table. One thing that really benefited my ability to contribute to those conversations is having some distance ed experience of my own through these different programs. And finally, distance learning resources improve access for all students. These resources, once you are able to reach out, is not only reaching out to a distance ed student, it's that student in the residence halls that is the president of 5 different clubs and really needs to figure out a way to participate in everything. If she wants to make time for the Leadership Institute, she can because of the flexible nature of the setting. So a student who is interacting with us via distance can do this program, but also that really busy student or that commuter student or that student athlete who can't make the time during the day because of practice schedules, all of these students can now have access to these programs. And there's some really great opportunities to expand your reach to your campus. Other than that, that is really it. And I hope I offered you some information, and I'll be happy to take some questions.
Great, thank you, Cindy. And just as a reminder, in case people came late, go ahead and type into the question box, and if you click that little red box, upper right-hand corner, the little red arrow, that should open up the question box if you want to do that. There was a question that someone asked, will the PowerPoints be sent out after the conference has ended? We are recording all of these sessions, and we'll post them on breakdrink.com and also studentaffairs.tv. But if you want a specific PowerPoint, if you contact the presenter, I'm sure that they would be happy to share that with you.
For sure.
Yeah, on there. And this was great because these are a lot of things that we're in the process of going through right now, specifically around orientation. So this was great to see this. This question is, how much advertising did you have to do to to get students interested?
I'm really glad you mentioned that because as I end the presentation, I said, oh, I should have talked about marketing. So thank you. And what's funny is the marketing effort that I assumed had to be directed towards students also had to be directed towards faculty and staff. And for students, we had to do the same amount of marketing you have to do for any event. We did the typical get student leaders to nominate people who they think would benefit, et cetera, flyers, posters, et cetera. But one thing I didn't realize, and specifically for the Leadership Institute program, was that we depend a lot on faculty and staff to nominate and encourage students. And if they didn't understand what we were doing, they weren't providing that type of encouragement. So what I ended up doing was taking my laptop and going on the road and going to people's offices and saying, I want to tell you about our new program and let me open it up and show you. I also found myself doing some of the advertising via podcast. So I would record a podcast for the RAs, again, not really a podcast, sorry, a sound file for the RAs, and I would email it to them and said, see attached, and it was a promotion for the Leadership Institute, and I would say, and because you opened this message, listening to these podcasts just isn't that hard. So showing them examples was a big part of marketing. It's gotten easier over the years, but I really found that what I assumed had to be student marketing actually had to be twofold.
Do you still have to market to that same level, or now that you've done it, is it easier?
It's definitely easier, but also the campus dialogue about distance ed has also become more robust in the past 3 years. So I think the faculty and staff are coming along a little faster than they were in the beginning.
Now, do you, like for the Leadership Institute, do you have an online Leadership Institute and an in-person Leadership Institute?
We don't. We should, but we don't.
Okay.
What we did when we started the online program was we made a decision to not offer the face-to-face program anymore and to move it online. And our goal is to add back more face-to-face programming. And actually, we're in the process this week of some visioning activities for what leadership education should be and could be for our campus.
I was going to ask if you have different learning outcomes for each of the different type of programs you do, like based off of face-to-face versus online.
We haven't differentiated because they're, again, we only offer Leadership Institute in one format. But if we offered them in two formats, I would maintain that the learning outcomes should be the same. It's just the strategies that would change.
Yeah. How much time do you devote per week for online maintenance?
Per week for online maintenance, I would say it's more per 2 weeks. We upload each module every 2 weeks. I do a lot of the front loading before the course even starts. So that's all the podcasts are set to go. Really it's just discussion board responses, and I would say every 2 days I maybe reserve an hour to respond to things in the beginning. As it goes through the semester, we're now almost toward the end, and I'm finding myself maybe half hour every 3 days is probably realistic. I also have the student teaching assistant helping me with some of that too.
Good. We have a couple more minutes left. If someone wants to ask another question, if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag BrickDrink and ask it that way, or if you would put it in the question box. And Cindy, while we're waiting, can you go back to one of your earlier slides where you have your contact information so they can find you if they need to, or if they just want to hear your voice again.
Right, so it's a rare opportunity.
Yes.
I'm coming. Here we go. Too much.
The presentation may have been longer than I remembered.
Right, I was flying. There we go.
There
That's
we go.
me.
So if you want a copy of the slides, this is where you can find Cindy here, or she's very active in the essay chat community online as well. So I don't see any other questions. We're actually at our time limit, so we'll probably end it.
Very great.
End it here. But Cindy, thank you so much for doing this. I would love maybe a year from now to see if there's an update in this presentation, any other updated statistics, and how it continues to grow.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I'm visualizing there were thousands of people on here for this presentation, so it's really kind of cool.
There were exactly 1,000. Yes.
Fantastic.
And again, it is recorded, and we'll have it up online, so millions can then view it at that time.
Very cool. I should also mention I have an article in Campus Activities Programming Magazine for the October 2010 issue on this very topic. So.
Great.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.